This is your last chance to come in clean.
What's he gonna do? Arrest me? Call me a rogue cop?
I don't know what he'll do.
I am doing what needs to be done.
Way here's the real deal.
Why are the bad ones always so good looking?
Bona fide tribe killer from the streets.
How'd you think this was gonna go down? Whatever it takes, you remember that?
Betray your brothers, and you will die 1,000 times over.
This motherfucker right here's a snitch! I came on to take down the son on you, not to shuffle the deck.
We knew you would become personally attached.
You tell Mr. Lee that his people stay the fuck out of our territory, and in return, we'll let him live. It's war now. You want the chairman? I report to him now. You want the Red Poles? I'm one of them. Show these motherfuckers what it means to be Sun On Yee!
That's what worries me.
It's a bloody marvelous time to be alive. An age of invention. So many clever blokes dreaming up impossible machines. Sorting away more gold than Queen Victoria herself. But none of those shillings ever makes it into the pockets of the poor devils whose blood is spilled building this glorious empire. The working class sleepwalks through life unaware of the machine that drives them. Let's wake them up then, shall we?
Sorry that Everything can change in an instant, whether or not you're ready.
This wasn't the world I wanted, but it was the one I found myself in. This time I'm ready. Because I know war.
War never changes.
I have a question. The only question that matters. Would you risk your life for your fellow man? Even if that man is a synth?
Beneath the Commonwealth, there is a cancer, known as the Institute. A malignant growth that needs to be cut before it infects the surface.
They're the real enemy. Not the Raiders. Not the super mutants. Not even those tools over in Diamond City.
Don't shoot! I swear I'm not a synth, for God's sakes, for family!
This is ridiculous. I want the truth, McDonough.
Let's go, boy.
Welcome home, son. Watch as I take it all away from him. How do I find Alvarez? How? We're getting ready to fucking kill me.
I was just doing what Uncle Sal told me to do.
There's got to be something we can do. You are Sal Marcano.
We wouldn't be in this fucking mess if you'd done what you were supposed to do.
This is a one-way road. Once you start down it, there ain't no turning back.
You are who you are. No point in arguing with yourself about it.
Just Cause 3.
Why?
All right, let me grab my...
Resident Evil 3. To many, this game was a disappointment, but for me it was an awesome experience that brought me back to the times where I played the original game on Dreamcast. Using the same engine as the Resident Evil 2 remake, this game is simply gorgeous, with an incredible level of detail on the sceneries, the character models, or even on the weapons. The sound design is astonishing, with little details like crunching glass or the dragging sound of feet making you aware that an enemy is nearby, which is very important for a survival horror game. I also loved how even the weakest zombie can be a menace in this game, and if you are not careful, a battle against 3 or 4 zombies will spell certain doom for you when you get surrounded. There are also the mutated monsters like the Hunters, which are way more dangerous than before. I honestly freaked out every time one of them would appear on the screen. But the main menace is of course Nemesis, the prototype bioweapon from Umbrella that relentlessly chases you through the game. The sections where Nemesis appears are truly terrifying, even more than in the original game, and each encounter with him brings something new to the table that makes each battle even more interesting. I must also talk about the characters in this game. Jill Valentine is a more badass than ever, but I also love playing with Carlos, that is more likable than ever. And yes, the Carlos last joke is still in this game. The facial animations are spot on, as if you were seeing a real person talking, and the voice acting is superb as well. So, if the game is so good, why is it at number 10? Well, the game has a huge problem. It is too short. You can finish the game in under 6 hours, and there's even an achievement if you manage to finish it in under 4 hours. Yeah. Also, I love the original Resident Evil 3, and there is a lot of content that was cut in this remake, especially the Clock Tower section, as well as a lot of changes to the parts that did make it into the remake. For instance, the first time you saw Nemesis was in the police station in the original, but in this remake he appears almost at the start of the game. Nevertheless, I love this game, and it even comes with the Resident Evil Resistance multiplayer mode for free, which is a nice bonus. Number 9. Temtem. Well, this game isn't out technically, since it's still in early access. It already has more than enough content for me to include it in this year's list. Temtem is not just a Pokemon MMO, but it actually introduces some elements that improve upon the creature collecting formula, creating a unique game that stands on its own. So, first, the similarities. Yes, you need to catch monsters, battle with them to increase their levels, and make them evolve into new species. Yes, the story is pretty similar, with your character wanting to become the best Temtem catcher in the world, starting its career with a professor handing him the first Temtem. And yes, there is an evil organization, called Clan Belsoto in this game, that is out to conquer the world and that ends up crossing paths with you. But this game sets itself apart with some interesting elements. All battles are 2-on-2 battles, meaning you will always use 2 Temtems each time. Your adversaries will always have different Temtems, and so they can always counter the Temtems you send into battle, making the battles quite challenging and forcing you to strategize better instead of just spamming moves to win. Another cool feature is that your Temtem can only use 4 moves in battle, but outside of battle, you can change the moves whenever you want, from the moves he has learned. This allows you to create unique builds for specific enemies, which is quite awesome. Temtem moves also use stamina, with the more powerful moves consuming more stamina of course. When the stamina bar is depleted, your Temtem will get hurt if he attacks, so you will either be forced to let him rest or attack and maybe get him to faint. There are also a lot of side quests to complete, and since this is an MMO, you can see other players running around, which you can challenge for a Temtem battle or even playing co-op with. The world of the game is also pretty cool, with unique and interesting NPCs to meet. The cartoonish graphic style is quite beautiful, and the music is pretty good. Overall, this is one of the best indies of the year, and a serious contender against the Pokemon series. A game that I recommend for sure. Number 8.
It's go time.
XCOM Chimera Squad. There have always been great games in the XCOM series, and thankfully this game is not an exception. Set 5 years after the events of XCOM 2, in this game, humans and aliens are figuring out how to live in harmony after the defeat of Advent in the previous game. You take control of Chimera Squad, a new division of XCOM that are kinda like the SWAT team of this universe. meaning they are called upon to act on cases that the police alone cannot handle. A big difference in regards to the previous XCOM entries is that you can only recruit 8 agents from a pool of 11 possible. And each of these agents is unique, having their own personality, appearance and voice acting, which to me was actually pretty cool. It makes you feel more connected with the characters, especially with unique interactions they have with each other or the banter talks they have. Also, unlike previous XCOM titles, you can recruit aliens to your team, and each character has different special abilities they can use as well as different stats. You can only deploy 4 characters in each mission, so it's cool to mix and match to see the different abilities and find the best teams you can use. The gameplay is great, for the most part is like in the previous games of the series, but the new abilities you can use are quite cool to use and watch, with some great animations. Overall, I was pretty impressed with this game. Yes, it's a bit different from XCOM 2, but I love the continuity of the storyline, and seeing how the society evolved after the defeat of Advent. And I'm pretty interested in seeing the future of this series. Will we go to space and fight the alien overlords in their homeworld? Number 7.
I wonder what's in here.
Desperados 3. The real-time tactical stealth game genre had its peak in the early 2000s with the Commando series, Robin Hood: The Legend of Sherwood, and Desperados. Sadly, the genre faded away, but nowadays it's making a triumphant return, especially with this third entry in the Desperados series. This game is a prequel to the previous titles of the series, where you will see the origin story of John Cooper, the protagonist of Desperados, that sets out in search of the man that killed his father and along the way meets the other members of his team. There are 5 characters you can control, each having their unique set of special abilities and strengths. It's up to you to decide on how to use them and the best way to proceed in the level. Will you use John's ability to toss a coin to distract the guards and pass stealthy behind them? Or use Kate's charm to attract them and then hit them from behind? Or just use her guns and take them down before they even have time to react? It's this range of possibilities that make this game so great. Another great feature of this game is the traps you can use, which differ depending on the scenario you are playing in. For instance, you can startle a horse and make him hit an enemy, rendering him unconscious, roll a rock down a hill, crushing the enemies below, or detonate a stick of dynamite that the enemies are guarding. Also, something new in the series is that you can pause the action and plot out a sequence of moves for your squad, before executing them all at once to make complex simultaneous actions possible, which is a feature that I absolutely loved. The characters also have great personalities, and I absolutely loved the voice acting in this game. It was pretty great. And visually, the game is also quite stunning. A pretty great return of the series that makes me excited to see what the future will hold in this video game genre. Number 6.
We have the Hellpriest signal locked in. The target is marked, but the signal will not hold for long.
Doom Eternal. This direct sequel to the 2016 hit didn't disappoint. Doom Eternal not only retains the high-speed gory gameplay of its predecessor, but it also tweaks the formula to introduce more strategy and replayability. For instance, you can regain health with glory kill executions. So, should you mow down the weakest enemies first, or save them to regain health when needed? Or do you go after a Mancubus rocket launchers first, disabling him, and then proceed to destroy the rest of the enemies, saving the defenseless demon for last? These are the choices you will have to make in this game, instead of just aimlessly mowing down everything you see. You also now have access to a grappling hook that allows you to traverse the scenarios faster, reaching places you normally couldn't in the previous game. There are a few new weapons in the game, with each new weapon having access to upgrades that unlock alternate fire modes. You can also collect runes that give you passive bonuses like speed boosts for instance. Sentinel crystals that give you new abilities and let you increase your max health, ammo or armor, and the Praetor suit tokens that lets you choose from a dozen skills to augment. You will also face new enemies in a single player campaign that lasts 15 hours, which is a pretty great length for a shooter these days. The story is okay, serving more as a backdrop for the game's action. It won't win any Oscars for its plot. But visually, this is one of the best looking first-person shooters of all time, and the game also presents a kick-ass soundtrack. Number 5. Ori and the Will of the Wisps. If the first game already impressed with its visual style and great gameplay, this sequel manages to be even more impressive. Being a direct sequel to Ori and the Blind Forest, the story takes place immediately after the events of that game, with Kuru's last egg hatching and a baby owl being born, named Ku. After some events in the game, Ori and Ku get lost and separated, and as such, Ori needs to brave a new land called Niwen in search of his friend. This Metroidvania expands upon the gameplay of the original game, with new abilities and power-ups for Ori to use. The game offers a gorgeous world to explore, and I dare to say this is one of the most beautiful games I've ever seen. The visual style is simply outstanding, with colorful platforming sections, stunning visual effects and animated backgrounds that sometimes make you think you are watching an animated movie instead of a video game. And the soundtrack is also amazing, with each song fitting perfectly with the area you are playing in. This is a must-have for any Metroidvania genre fan. Period. Number 4. Crusader Kings 3. If this game has proven anything, it's that the grand strategy genre is no longer a niche genre, since this game sold more than 1 million copies on its first month of release. And justly so. Paradox managed to expand and refine what we had in Crusader Kings 2, adding new features that makes this game the ultimate medieval strategy game. So, here are some of the new features introduced in this game. Your chosen rulers will each have different personalities, and denying their natural tendencies leads them to build up stress to the point of having a mental breakdown, which in turn opens new possibilities in the way they can handle it. For instance, you can turn them into a drunkard, or have them participate in duels, or even make them frequent houses of ill fame. There's also a new freeform religion system, where you can abandon a doctrine that no longer suits you in favor of another one, or even create your own sect. There's a new system of spying that allows you to uncover secrets about other rulers, like extramarital affairs, and then blackmail them to do your bidding. There is also a genetic system that allows your characters to pass on some of their characteristics to their descendants, and you can create dynasties by marrying your children with the heads of other states. There are so many possibilities to ponder in the way that you rule your kingdom that I could be talking about this game for hours here, which is amazing. Visually, this game is also stunning, which is something you wouldn't expect to say about a game of this genre. For the first time in the series, you have fully 3D animated character models, but the map is also gorgeous to look at, and you can easily make the distinction between swamps, forests or plains. The soundtrack is also amazing, as well as the sound design. This is not only one of the best games of 2020, but is also the best game in the grand strategy genre of all time, and a must-have in your collection. Number 3.
You don't like it when I pet your other heads, huh? No.
Hades. This roguelike role-playing game took the world by surprise, so much that it was nominated for Game of the Year. And I gotta say that this is not my pick for number 1, but that doesn't mean that this game isn't amazing. In this game you control Zagreus, the son of Hades, as he attempts to escape from the underworld to reach Mount Olympus, against the wishes of his father, who unleashed the demons of the underworld to halt his progress. And in this game you will die. And die. And die again. But this is actually a mechanic of the game. Let me explain. When you progress to the underworld levels, you can collect darkness and other currencies. And when you die, you will respawn at Hades' Palace, where you can spend these currencies to become stronger and gain new abilities, as well as unlock new weapons to use. So, you will have to keep on getting stronger until you are finally able to escape. But each time you re-enter the explorable underworld, the rooms have been rearranged and populated with monsters again. So each run is unique. Each weapon has a different playstyle, and you can get blessings from the Greek gods as you progress through the levels, that give you different abilities for each weapon. So there is a lot of replayability in this game. Visually the game is stunning, with a unique cel-shaded art style and pretty cool character models. The soundtrack is great, but what I really loved was the voice acting in this game, and the dialogue. Like Hades mocking Zagreus each time he returns, or the counsels that Achilles gives to Zagreus. For a game of this genre, there is an absurd amount of voice acting, which is great. A must-have game for sure. Number 2. Genshin Impact. Honestly, I never thought I would have a Chinese game in my favorite games of the year. But it happened. Genshin Impact is an amazing experience, and best of all, it's completely free. Yes, there are microtransactions with gacha elements, but the game actually allows you to earn the shop currency by playing, and you often get currency for free when a new event appears in the game. I never felt like I had to spend a dime to progress in the game. And that's how you do a free-to-play game. Genshin Impact takes place in the fantasy world of Teyvat, where you play as one of two twins. You can choose which one when the game begins. That become separated from each other after an attack by an unknown god. You will then have to search for your lost sibling with the aid of a companion called Paimon, ending up getting involved in the affairs of the nations of this world. The plot deepens as you progress, with many anime tropes thrown in, but I actually enjoyed them. I love anime, so yeah. Gameplay-wise, the game takes many cues from Breath of the Wild, so much that many people accused it of being a clone, but it's not quite so. Yes, you can glide in this game. The exploration of the world also resembles that game a lot, with many hidden secrets to uncover and enemies and bosses to face. You can also use elemental abilities to affect the world around you for various effects, like freezing the water or using fire to light up torches, or setting fire to the ground to damage enemies. You can also climb, run, mine mineral nodes, get food, hunt wild beasts and cook foods for different effects. But that's where the similarities end. First of all, you can have a party of 4 characters and change between them whenever you want, both in the explorable areas and in combat. But you can unlock more than 30 characters in the game, with more being added regularly to the game. and you can have multiple party setups and change between them outside of combat. Each character has one of 7 elemental affinities, and you can combine these in combat for different effects. For instance, you can use a hydro character to wet an enemy, and then use an electro character to attack him for increased damage. These elemental abilities may also be required to solve some puzzles in the game's world. You can collect several different weapons which you can upgrade, with some weapons having unique effects, and upgrade your character stats like in any role-playing game. Unlike Breath of the Wild, there's also a cooperative multiplayer mode, and up to 4 players can play together. Visually, this is a beautiful game, with a luxurious world and an amazing art style. I especially love the design of the characters. Sometimes you feel like you're watching an anime rather than playing a game. The voice acting is also great, and I gotta give special props for Lisa's actress in this game. But the best thing in this game is the immense amount of content. Disregarding the secondary quests, the dungeons and the hidden things in the world, the main story alone will take you dozens of hours to complete. And the game isn't finished yet, as they have only released 2 of the 7 planned nations for the time being, meaning that a lot of more content is coming in the future. So yeah, this is a game that you can get lost in, and I simply love games like that. Number 1.
What happened?
What do you think? Buddhists were blowing smoke. You got duped. Made you their goddamn kamikaze drone. Guess that's your reward for lending him a hand.
Cyberpunk 2077. Now, I know what some of you will say. Yes, this game has a lot of bugs. It's also not what many people thought it would be. For those that expected a GTA-like game in a futuristic city, well, sorry to say, you were wrong. This is an open-world role-playing game, and one of the best I've played of all time. So in Cyberpunk 2077, you play as V. You can customize your character with many different options, some even quite hilarious, like having swirly eyes or the controversial genitalia customization. Although you cannot see your character in-game, except for when you are riding a bike or when you look down in first person at your feet or in a mirror. You can choose one of 3 backgrounds, which will have an impact not just in the first initial hour of the game, but also in conversations with NPCs throughout the game. For instance, I managed to convince a character not to shoot me because I was a nomad like he was. The main storyline is pretty great. You plan a heist to steal a prototype bioship, things go wrong, people get shot, and you end up with the chip stuck in your head and a death sentence, as it will eventually kill you. To make things worse, the chip contains the digital ghost, or the construct if you prefer, of a terrorist called Johnny Silverhand, played by Keanu Reeves. So you set out in a search of a way to remove the chip, and get embroiled in an epic storyline in Night City. This relationship with you and Johnny is one of the best parts of the game. Even in the secondary missions, Johnny will give his opinion on certain events, which you can agree with or dismiss. It's up to you on how you want to play your character. You can play as a nicer guy or a complete asshole, but morality is quite ambiguous in Night City, as in any cyberpunk medium. Talking about choice, you can develop your character the way you wish. You can specialize in melee combat using your fists, or one of the special upgrades you can get later on, like the Mantis blades. Use melee weapons like swords or bats, use pistols, shotguns, rifles or sniper rifles, use hacking, or become a ninja and use stealth to attack from the shadows. Or mix them all up, as the game doesn't lock you on a specific playstyle, which I found amazing. Specializing does have its benefits too, as some sections can only be accessed if you have a high enough ability to get in there. Like in Deus Ex, you can approach most of the missions in the way you want. Go in guns blazing, try to hack your way in, go stealthy, or even, in some, talk it out. and your choices also matter. For instance, in one of the story missions, there is a character you can kill, but if you spare him, he appears at the end as a boss in a mech suit. You have many possibilities in how to approach the content, and this brings a lot of replayability to the game. What I absolutely loved in this game is that the side missions are amazing. In some ways, some are even better than the main questline. For instance, there's a quest where you need to help an AI in recovering its taxes, that are driven by different constructs of its personality. And there's an amazing Easter egg in this mission for Valve fans. Or another one where I got scammed and woke up in an organ trafficking facility, completely naked and with no weapons. It's quests like this that makes exploring Night City so fun. Talking of which, Night City is huge, with many different areas to discover, including the outskirts, where you have a barren wasteland and some smaller settlements. You can steal cars like in GTA to drive around, but you can also unlock and buy unique rides to drive around the city, which you can call at any given time. There's just so much to do and to explore in this world that I could go on for hours. In my main playthrough, I've already synced more than 60 hours and I'm still just at 20% completion. So yeah, this was my best gaming experience. So this one might be a bit controversial, as it is pretty much a carbon copy remake of the 2008 original. But I have to say that even so, this game managed to hook me up from the start once again. And since I love horror games, it was a no-brainer to include this one on this year's list. If you have never played the original, Dead Space follows an engineer named Isaac Clarke that, along with the crew of the Callion, arrives on the mining ship USG Ishimura, on which Isaac's wife was stationed. However, when they arrive, they find that the communications are down, and after a malfunction, the Callion crashes into the Ishimura and soon finds out that something went horribly wrong there. This game is a third-person survival horror game, with an over-the-shoulder cam, just like Resident Evil 4. Where you will have to battle monstrosities called necromorphs. Unlike zombies, you can't kill them with a headshot though. The only way to defeat them is by dismembering their bodies using the weapons at your disposal, like the now famous plasma cutter. You can also use some special tools like the stasis, which slows movement for a limited time, and the kinesis, which can move or pull objects in the environment. And this can be used not only in solving puzzles, but also against the enemies. Dead Space also features zero-G environments that add a special flavor to the gameplay, allowing you to jump through surfaces and vacuum sections where you will need to rush or run out of air. Now, like I mentioned, the game is pretty much a carbon copy, but there are a few new features. To begin, Isaac now talks, while in the first game he was a silent protagonist. You can also now revisit areas you have been before to collect items you forgot or couldn't get, which was something you couldn't do in the original. There are also a few new enemy types and some redone sequences that are done way better than in the original game, like the infamous asteroid blasting sequence of the original. A fantastic remake that enhances the gameplay while leaving the already fantastic story unchanged and presenting it all with fantastic visuals. A must-have game for sure. Number 9. One of the most fond memories I have is playing the original 2005 shooter Fear, and this game managed to bring me back to those days with its fantastic slow-motion shooting. This game is a first-person stealth action shooter that will have you battle through a plethora of enemies, including paranormal threats, just like in Fear. You play as Subject 106, the only name you are given during the course of the game. That is an amnesiac prisoner inside the Horizon Black Site. Rescued by an unknown party, you will have to first escape from the cell blocks while being handcuffed, until you get your first weapon, after which the action begins. Subject 106 is a genetically modified super soldier, just like in Fear, and so he has access to a few special abilities. You can slow down time by using the focus ability, you have an unnatural strength that allows you to grab enemies and throw them or use them as shields, and finally you can turn invisible for a few seconds, which allows you to grab enemies from behind to take them down. The enemy AI is pretty decent, and will force you to make full use of your abilities, but even so, the enemy soldiers will be cannon fodder that are obliterated in spectacular ways by you. The monsters you face later on present more of a challenge though, if you were thinking this game was too easy. A fantastic first-person shooter, full with over-the-top action, that is a must-have if you love the Fear series.
Number 8.
Geppetto's puppet. We need your help.
One could say that the Souls genre is becoming oversaturated with so many offerings in the market. But then something special like this game comes along that manages to grab us from the start, despite being far away from being original. You could actually say this game has a lot in common with Bloodborne, but that ain't exactly a bad thing when the game is designed so superbly as this one. Inspired by the tale of Pinocchio, in Lies of P, you play as Pinocchio, who is one of many puppets inhabiting the city of Krat in a steampunk setting where puppets perform menial labor for the populace, until they inevitably revolt and kill most of the humans. Matrix, anyone? Anyway, Pinocchio awakes in the middle of this chaos and is told that he must find his father Geppetto, who is the only one that can stop this uprising. The gameplay is pretty much like in any other Souls-like game, including boss fights with two phases, as it has become so common in the genre. That's not to say that this game does not bring something new to the table. In Lies of P, you can have a melee weapon assigned to your right hand, while the left is reserved for a utility weapon, like for instance a cannon that lets you attack enemies from afar, or the puppet string that is basically a grappling hook. These can even be upgraded to have new effects, which adds new mechanics to the way you approach battles. There's also a nice variety of weapons you can use and plenty of different combinations you can make in your arsenal. What's also cool is that in this game you can disassemble weapons and then mix and match to create unique weapons to attack your enemies, like for instance attaching a giant saw blade to a rapier handle. Pretty crazy and fun. This game also has a life system where the decisions you make through the course of the game will lead to one of 3 different endings, which will make you want to play again to see them all. A pretty cool game that you can miss out on, especially since it is still included on the Game Pass.
Number 7.
A surprise release during the Xbox Developer Direct right at the end of January, Hi-Fi Rush managed to become one of the best games released this year. This is a rhythm-based action game where everything moves to the beat of the soundtrack, and you can do higher damage and combos if you press the right button at the exact time. The best way to describe it would be Devil May Cry meets Rock Band. Honestly, I kinda detest rhythm games, but I was pleasantly surprised with this one, as even if you miss a bit, you won't exactly fail the attacks or die, but rather just do less damage. But what really struck me in this game was rather its hilarious story and characters, as well as the art style, which is simply great. So in this game you play as Chai, a young airhead that volunteers for Project Armstrong, a test program for cybernetic limb replacement that, unlike what the populace thinks, is being used by the evil Vandalay technologies to mind control people. As Chai's limb replacement process is about to begin, an accident occurs that embeds his music player into his chest, causing him to feel the world through environmental synesthesia. As the process went wrong, he is labeled a defect and hunted down by the corporation that transformed him. And so, his hilarious journey of survival from zero to hero begins. Besides what I already mentioned, I still need to talk about the fantastic soundtrack, or this wouldn't be a rhythm game. Including songs from Nine Inch Nails, Prodigy, The Flaming Keys and Black Lips, amongst others, this is one of the best game soundtracks of recent years and that fit like a glove in this game. A must-play game for sure. Number 6.
Please, Mills, don't hit them too hard.
I was getting bored of those minions. Time for a real fight. Come at me!
MiYoYo reached universal acclaim with Genshin Impact, and as such, there were high expectations with this new game. And gladly, they didn't disappoint. Unlike Genshin, which was an open-world action RPG, Honkai Star Rail is rather a JRPG with turn-based combat, although it still has the gacha mechanics present in Genshin. The game is set in a science fantasy universe in which humans and alien beings follow the paths of deity-like beings known as Zeons. These are each based on an ideal, with some wanting prosperity for all, while others are focused on the obliteration of civilization. One of the latter is the Path of Destruction, that believes in using Stellarons, powerful artifacts that will destroy any world they are placed in. Your character follows the path of the Trailblaze, a path created by the deceased Akivili that seeks to explore, establish and connect amongst different worlds. As such, you join the crew of the Astral Express that jumps between worlds exploring and seeking to end the menace of the Stellarons. The story of the game is actually quite complex, despite its small resume, but I have to say it had me quite engaged in it. The gameplay is like any classic JRPG. You have a team of 4 different characters, each having different attacks, abilities and affinities, that battle in turn-based fashion. Honkai though has plenty of different enemies, each being weaker against a different element, so you need to build a balanced party that can be effective against the different enemies. As this is a gacha game, you can collect hundreds of different playable characters, and switch party members when you are outside of combat. Despite this being a more linear game than Genshin, the game levels are also pretty big, encouraging exploration to find small secrets and hidden quests. Overall, it's not a revolutionary game, but it's pretty well designed, fun, and its anime art style is a joy to the eyes. Plus, this game is completely free, and despite the gacha mechanics, I never felt that I need to spend any money to progress or get better characters. Another great game from MiYoYo, and that is making me very eager to see what they do with their next game coming in 2024, Zenless Zone Zero. Number 5. So yes, some people had a gripe with this game in regards to the Season 1 problems that were introduced with the consequent patch, But I have to say that despite that, this is still one of the best gaming experiences I had this year. Diablo 4 doesn't reinvent action RPGs, actually taking notes and ideas from other recent games in the genre. But its return to a more dark setting like Diablo 2, plus the refined experience they created, makes this game a joy to play and behold. The game's plot will have you battle Lilith, daughter of Mephisto, that is returning after being summoned by cultists. She plans to take over Hell in order to save the Nephilim, a hybrid race that is both demon and angel that lives in Sanctuary, and of which your playable character is part of. However, her means include murdering anyone on her path, reason why you team up with the angel Inarius to stop her. While the story won't win any awards, Diablo has always been a series renowned by its gameplay, and this game doesn't disappoint in that regard. The game has 5 different playable classes that can have hundreds of different combinations in their builds, depending on the way you choose to spec your character. Taking a cue from other recent games in the genre, for the first time you have a completely customizable character, and also for the first time the cutscenes are in-engine and your character will appear in them. You can also change the appearance of your armor to any of the pieces you have unlocked in the game, so you can always look like you want, rather than what the best specs allow you to look like. Diablo 4 also has mounts allowing you to traverse the sceneries faster, though you can also teleport to towns. Unlike previous entries in the series, the game is also now online, and as such you will see other players running around and you can team up with them to complete special events or world bosses that randomly appear in the world. There's also PvP if you are into it, a first for the series as well. I welcome these changes as they make the core experience of Diablo better than ever. So yeah, this is a fantastic action RPG and a must play despite the problems it had earlier this year. Number 4. After Street Fighter V being such a disappointment at release, Capcom really listened to the fans and went back to the drawing board, and so made this sequel that is not only one of the best fighting games of the year, but one of the best games released this year as well. With 12 returning characters and 6 new to the series, there's plenty of fighters from you to choose from. And if you thought you already know everything there is to know about the fighting style of your favorite characters, well, Capcom introduced a new system called the Drive System that completely changes the way you fight. Every character gains access to 5 powerful abilities that are governed by a drive gauge. You start the game with a full bar and it's up to you to activate each special, which include not only the special moves like the Super Hadouken from Ryu, but also the Drive Rush that allows you to get close to your opponent in a flash, the Drive Parry, which parries a move, the Drive Reversal, which allows you to make an opponent back off while you're blocking, and the Drive Impact, that is kinda like an armor that can absorb up to 2 hits, allowing you to break an enemy combo and unleash one yourself. While these moves are powerful, there is also a downside if you use them. When you run out of energy in the drive meter, your character enters a burnout state where you take more damage and even sustain chip damage when blocking. This new system will make you relearn how you play Street Fighter all over again. But it's not only the combat system that got a rework. There's a single player story mode called World Tour, where you create a character and in an RPG fashion go around the world meeting the main characters of the Street Fighter universe and becoming their disciple, allowing you to learn their moves and leveling up by equipping new gear. While not spectacular, it is a nice break of pace and it will take you around 20 hours to complete. You can also take your created character into the online battle hub, which is a lobby on which you wait for ranked and unranked matches and it's pretty fun and cool to see the creations of other players running around. This hub also has something special too. You can play Capcom classic games like Final Fight or Street Fighter 2 at arcade cabinets, buy new clothes and accessories for your character, or fight other players in avatar battles. Honestly, this was one of the most fun I had with fighting games in recent years, and for that alone, this game already deserves a spot on this year's list. Number 3. Well, if you keep up with my annual lists, you will know by now that each year there's always a Resident Evil game on it, and this year is not different. And despite the fact of me being a very big fan of the series, this remake of the best Resident Evil game ever made truly deserves to be on this list. And if it wasn't for the two titles and number 1 and number 2, it could have gotten the Game of the Year award. Capcom has already shown us they can do great remakes, but they really outdone themselves in this one, removing all the annoying moments the original Resident Evil 4 had, like the quick time events, turning the game even more creepy, especially with a new introduction to the story, and having a better pacing as well as refined controls. If you never played the original game, in Resident Evil 4 you control Leon Kennedy, that after the events of Resident Evil 2 went on to become a Secret Service agent working for the President of the United States. In this game's plot, Leon travels to Spain in order to rescue Ashley Graham, the President's daughter that has been abducted by a mysterious cult. However, he soon finds out that the cult is actually made up of people infected with a mind-controlling parasite called Las Plagas, and that there's also a third party involved that wishes to secure a sample of this parasite for their own purposes. Despite keeping the main plot unaltered, there are a few welcome differences as well, but I will keep silent about those for now because of spoilers. But the biggest and welcome change is in the sections where you need to protect Ashley, because not only her AI is better in avoiding enemies, but she now doesn't have an health bar, and as such you don't need to worry about her dying all the time. If the original was already amazing, this remake manages to top it in every single way, and is a must-have in any gamer's collection. Number 2.
Alan?
Saga, I finished it. The ending we talked about.
I have the clicker and the bullet of light. Let's do this.
This long-awaited sequel to Alan Wake takes everything the original did right and dials it up to 11, crafting an horror story that's amongst the best games in the genre ever made. This game blends perfectly psychological and survival horror genres, where in one moment you are investigating a murder, having to search for clues, and in the next one you are dispatching enemies while trying to stay alive. This game has two different protagonists: the writer Alan Wake, that washes ashore Cauldron Lake, learning he has been missing for 13 years, and the FBI agent Saga Anderson, who's been dispatched to the small town nearby to investigate a series of ritualistic slaughters. You begin the game playing as Saga, having to investigate the crime scenes and piecing together what happened using her mind place, a mind construct where she can enter and where everything you discover is recorded. If you have seen any detective TV show like Profiler, this is what these sections look like, and it was a pretty great addition to the more gritty action of the later game stages. After the mystery begins to unravel, you will have to shift between both characters, with the actions each other take having an effect on each other's reality. The story can be quite confusing if you're not paying attention, but is one of the most convoluted and well-designed plots of recent years. but the story is only part of the game, and gladly, the gameplay is also pretty good. Like in the original game, you need to use light sources to stagger the enemies before you can dispatch them with the guns at your disposal. There's a good variety of enemy types for you to face, and some exceptional and challenging boss battles. A fantastic game for sure. Number 1. And finally, at number 1, we have Baldur's Gate 3. To anyone that has played it, this is inevitably the best game released this year. But I'll go farther and say that this is one of the best role-playing games ever made. Yes, it is that good. Larian Studios has put to work everything it learned with its Divinity series and crafted a masterful RPG that is a nod to its Dungeons & Dragons tabletop roots and the best transposition of the D&D rules to a video game format ever made. The game has a fantastic storyline, full with interesting and well-developed characters, and that will take you hundreds of hours to complete. Yes, you heard it right, hundreds. To put this in perspective, I'm 120 hours in on my main playthrough, and I haven't finished the game yet. The main storyline begins with your character trapped on a Mind Flayer vessel, a race that breeds by implanting their tadpoles into the heads of other sentient beings, that will eventually morph them into a Mind Flayer. You escape from the vessel, but not before you get infected yourself, and along with other infected you meet along the way, you begin your search for a cure to this affliction before it changes you forever. But there will be much more on your path that I won't reveal because of spoilers. There's also a ton of subquests you can complete, plus a lot of secrets that you will only find if you spend your time exploring the world. A thing this game is masterful of doing is that your choices really matter. An example, there's a character named Jahira that you can recruit to your party. However, I made the mistake of asking for her help in a battle before she reached the point where she could be recruited, and she died permanently in the game. Plus, other characters will remember the choices you made. Again, with the Jahir example, when I finally reached Baldur's Gate, the NPCs that knew her actually knew she had died in battle because of my choices. The game is a CRPG, so you battle in turns using the abilities that your party learns as they level up. However, this game uses its D&D rules in a masterful way. So you can, for instance, use a fire spell to blow up dynamite barrels, affecting all enemies nearby, toss enemies down cliffs, use an electric spell to affect all enemies standing on water, and so on. You can devise a lot of different strategies to defeat your foes. The AI is quite smart as well. For instance, in a boss battle, I almost died because the boss was repeatedly targeting my healer. Enemies also try to use the environment against you, or gang up on a single character, which will make your encounters pretty hard. You can also avoid some battles by convincing or deceiving the enemies in a true D&D fashion. And yes, that means you will need to roll a dice for a lot of conversation options. The character creator is also superb, with 29 different sub-races, with plenty of different ways to customize each of them, as well as each of these sub-races having different abilities. And there's also 12 different playable classes, each having at least 3 different specializations you can choose from later on. The game is also gorgeous to look at, with highly detailed characters and environments, and the soundtrack is outstanding as well. Without a doubt, one of the best games you will